So Jordan Peterson put out a tweet a few days ago that I thought was worth bringing to people's attention because in it he really shows how he, and to be honest, probably a lot of people view the creation of other people and the self-centered nature which they view other human beings and the act of creating a whole other person. So there was a post put out by the Instagram account Facts which shared an article which said that people without children tend to be happier than parents. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not even going to get into the study because I actually don't think the study is relevant. The study is just what was being reported on or shared by this Instagram account. What's more important, I think, for the purposes of this video is looking at the way Jordan Peterson reacted to this. So first we're going to go through Jordan Peterson's tweet and his reaction to this study, and then I'm going to go over what I think a more appropriate, more moral and more sensible and responsible reaction to such a study would have been. So his tweet goes like this. So he lists out 11 questions and points, and then he has a few additional notes at the end. So he says, 1, says who. 2, measured who. 3, over what time span. 4, compared to who and when. 5, happier or more hedonistic and immature. 6, who funded the research. 7, lies, damn lies and statistics. 8, one phrase, replication crisis. 9, meaning and happiness are not the same thing, but the former trumps the latter. 10, responsibility and happiness are not the same thing, but the former trumps the latter. 11, adventure and happiness are not the same thing, but the former trumps the latter. If social or educational psychologists conducted the study, ignore it. If people who hate children or do not have them conduct the study, dismiss it. So I'm going to pick up on a few points in this tweet, but the main overarching thing that I want to say here, and I think the main thing we should take from his response to this study, is that he cares nothing about what is in the best interests of the potential future child. He shows no concern for this in this tweet. The only thing he cares about in this tweet is how children can be used as a means to our own ends so that we can pursue things, like he says, adventure, responsibility, and meaning. So just because you want to pursue those things in your life, it's completely okay to create someone to satisfy your own desires and needs. That doesn't seem like a responsible or ethical reaction to this study. And Jordan's got the framing completely off here. So before I go over how I think Jordan should have reacted to this study, let's go through some of his points, and I'm going to share my thoughts on a couple of them. So point 1 is, says who. The only thing I'd say to this is that relevant? Look at the actual research, look at what the data shows, find out if it's an actual valid study, and then does it actually matter who produced the study? Ultimately, it doesn't matter if my aunt or some person from Harvard conducted the study. If the study is valid and the research was well collected and it shows some important points, then it's worth taking seriously. Obviously, it's more likely to be a reputable study if the people are extremely well qualified to do it, but asking who did the study when you haven't even addressed what's in the study, and to be honest, I doubt he's even read it, is the complete wrong way to go about things. The second point he says is measured how. Well, the only thing I would say to this is read the study, Jordan. I think what he's doing here is he's essentially casting doubt on the study, and it's very easy to cast doubt on things and not actually just point out specifically where he thinks they've gone wrong. Like, he could have read this study, he could have noted down exactly where he thinks they went wrong and why the conclusions they've drawn are not valid, and he could have pointed that out in a video, or he could have pointed it out in a tweet like this, but he didn't. All he did is say measured who, measured how. And this really plays into this sort of modern pornography of doubt, where it's so often nowadays that what people will do is just cast doubt on anything that they don't really find appeals to their sensitivities without actually digging into the study or whatever they're reacting to actually see, is it valid or not? It's so easy and childish to cast doubt on something and not actually do the legwork to show that it's wrong. Now, again, I haven't gone into this study because I don't think that is really necessary for the purposes of this video. It may be a complete flawed study, but Jordan's not showing that. He doesn't even seem to care. Now, I'm not going to go over every point in the tweet. If you have specific thoughts on any of the points I'm not addressing, then please put them in the comments below, but I'm going to skip ahead to some that I think are the most important. So 9, 10, and 11 are this. Meaning and happiness, responsibility and happiness, and adventure and happiness are not the same thing, but the former in all those cases trump the latter. Again, this just goes to show that Jordan is viewing these potential future people, these children that can be created, as a means to an end, a means to his own end. It's true, we all need meaning, and in my view, we're in a universe that has no ultimate meaning, and so we've each got to do the work to be able to carve out a sense of meaning for ourselves and help each other to do that as well. But creating someone else, which is an extremely significant act, is not your moral right to do so that you can find meaning in your life. On top of that, you're You're simply kicking the can down the road, putting the problem on someone else. Now they have to come up with some meaning in their life. He talks about responsibility, and I agree with him. Responsibility can be something that really improves someone's life. It brings a sense of order, a sense of duty, and it can make them become more mature as a person. And obviously, raising a child is a huge responsibility, and at times all-encompassing. And if someone wants to do that, then I think that is a virtuous act if they adopt and actually service the needs of someone who already exists. Okay, you want to improve your life, become more mature as a person, bring order to your life through getting responsibility. Why do you get to create someone else, a whole new independent being who's not you? They're a whole separate being, and you're just creating them because you want a sense of responsibility. There are so many other more responsible ways, ironically, of gaining a sense of responsibility. Start an animal sanctuary and look after hundreds potentially of animals that would have faced slaughter, and now you can give a good life to. Adopt a human. Run a community. There are so many things we can do to get a sense of responsibility and have responsibility in our lives. And the last one, adventure. Well, if someone's going to create a whole new being so that they can get a sense of adventure, then this is just beyond fucked. Children aren't an amusement park ride. They're not a hike in the mountains. They're a whole new separate being that's morally relevant, and you're creating them so that you can have a sense of adventure. And people take this guy seriously? It's beyond me that people didn't read this tweet and think that's a really self-centered way of viewing a potential person that you could create. The last thing actually in the tweet I want to comment on is when he says, if people who hate children or do not have them conduct the study, dismiss it. Again, dismissing a study based on who conducted it is a childish approach to evaluating research. You should actually look at the research, the data, the methods they use to collect it, not the people and their sensitivities. Yes, someone's sensitivities and their opinions can bias research, and therefore it can be rejected on the grounds that it's now biased, but rejecting a study just because it was conducted by someone who has particular sensitivities is asinine. That's assuming that someone who has particular sensitivities can't keep those out of the equation when they're conducting research. Anyway, there were a few of the usual suspects responding to this tweet as well. So you've got Elon Musk, who says kids make you happier than any material possession. Again, treating a child as a means to your own ends. You want to have a happy life? Okay, have at it, Hoss. There are loads of ways out there that you can have a happy life. But creating someone simply to serve your need of having a happy life is not morally appropriate. And to approach the serious ethical issue of whether you should create someone or not, and whether that's in their best interest to be created, and your answer is, well, this is going to make me happy, is a 4-year-old's approach to morality on this topic. Anyway, so I wanted to round off by going over how I think he should have responded and what a morally appropriate way of responding is, which he simply could have shared this study and given an actual account of how the study is either not flawed or flawed, whether the conclusions are valid or not valid, but then ultimately conclude that when it comes to the act of creating a child, whether it's going to make you happy or not, whilst relevant to your decision as to whether you're going to make a child, is not relevant to whether it's morally acceptable to create that child. And so the framing of the study, whilst it can be an interesting pursuit of finding out what's true, whether creating a child does make you happy or not, should not be the primary driving force in deciding whether to create a child. That would have been a much more responsible message to put out in response to this study. Instead, Jordan, as he often does, goes for the asinine route of embarrassing himself, but sadly is not seen to embarrass himself because all the people that follow him fall afoul of the same biases and the same way of viewing other people as a means to their own end to satisfy their own desires, create a whole new morally relevant being so that they can be happier. Well done, Jordan. Really virtuous message to put out. Anyway, let me know what you thought of Jordan's tweet. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts on Jordan's tweet, and I'll see you in the next one.